This is 9/11 Freefall.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of 9/11 Freefall. I'm the host, Andy Steele. The guest for tonight is John O'Malley. He helps lead a lot of congressional outreach projects for AE 9/11 Truth. He's also been a candidate for office, so he knows a lot about the process. A lot of people like listening to him, me included, so he's back tonight to talk about what you out there can do to reach politicians and the media with the 9/11 controlled demolition evidence. He'll be giving advice on how to use technology to get the evidence in front of those in our society with the power to do something about it if they choose to. And I think that this interview with John O'Malley and the subject matter for tonight's show is appropriate this week because the President's State of the Union address just took place on Tuesday. And no, I did not have the chance to watch or listen to it. I was busy working on this show, and I forgot that it was on. That was last night. That's the night before I'm recording this intro. But I checked this morning, and I found a copy of the speech online, and I did a Control-F search for the words, the state of our, and apparently Obama said that the state of our union is strong. So good news, folks. Of course, I've never heard any president say that it's bad or even indifferent. So take that for what it's worth. Stay tuned. I'll be playing that interview for you a little bit later. But we are in the presidential election season, at least the primary campaign time of it. And we are going to be having a new president before you know it, whoever that's going to be. And it's pretty standard for candidates who are seeking that office to tell everyone during their speeches that they're going to be working hard for the American people if they get the job. All right, well, one group that's already working hard for the American people are Dr. Leroy Halsey and his students, who are right now constructing a computer model of Building 7, which is going to test NIST theories. All right, it's going to test other theories, too. It's going to figure out whether or not office fires can really bring down a 47-story steel frame high-rise in 7 seconds. All right, this is a completely transparent project, folks. The computer model data and all of the developments will be open to the public. This is a first. This is historical. This is something that has been asked for years. So if you go to WTC7evaluation.org, type it into your browser, you'll see that Dr. Halsey has lab videos posted. And these are videos where he sits with his students and discusses recent updates in the project's progress. He shares some of the details of the work that's been recently put into it. So just so you can get an idea of all of the hard work that's going into your Building 7 investigation, I'm going to go ahead and play a clip from one of those lab videos for you.
Okay, today's July the 16th, and it's about 4 p.m. Alaska time, shortly after 4 p.m. And so let's kind of summarize where we are, what we're doing. So, who wants to start first?
I can start first.
Okay, go ahead.
Cool. Recently, I have been using SAP 2000 version 15 to model 2 floors, 12th floor and 13th floor being put together with all the girder, beam, and column members. And I'm still doing tentative modeling. And so far, the results are not quite as good as I expected because I have used, I have divided. I laid out all the floor. I laid out both floors and all the beam, girder, and column members. However, I still haven't been able to find a way to connect the floor with all the free members. So that's why the calculated deflection of the slab is a little bit too big. It's like a couple hundred inches. So yeah, I still haven't been able to find a way. And I've been working on it today, but I haven't found a way yet to connect.
And that's gravity
elements.
load?
Yes.
I see. So that means your slab is not connected to your beams.
Right.
That's what that means. And do you know where that deflection's at? Is that everywhere, or is that just some places?
A lot of places. Yeah, I don't know. It's not everywhere. Some places are definitely connected, but some are not.
Okay. So I think I would start identifying those places that are large, and that's going to be an indicator where you've got them. Do not have them connected together.
Okay.
All right. But everything else you think is probably right, correct?
Yeah, everything else is right. I used
because you guys have checked each other.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Everything else is right. Yeah, I used. I'll show the stuff I've been working on. On deflected form. I've used offset function. So right now the floor is on top. Is on the top surface of the girder members, and I'll show it right here.
Yeah. But the only way that they're going to be put together is through that link. Is
yes. Yes.
Okay.
Well, I mean, actually, no, we don't need to use links as long as they share the same joints. But
do you have them connecting to the same joints? Is that what your problem is right now? That maybe they're not.
I think Yes, I think the problem is they are not. They don't share the same joints.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's pretty important. You can't have them floating beside each other. Okay.
But right now, the slab is on top. Is on the top surface of all the girder members.
I have that. Okay. All right. Anything else?
No, that's about it. Yeah, that's about what I've done.
And so maybe by Monday, you think we can be actually doing an analysis to check and see how these things behave with respect to one another?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. And have you put your boundary conditions in at your top of your and bottom of your columns yet?
The boundary? No, I mean, well, I did put boundary conditions on, but the boundary conditions I put on there are just I fixed all the bottoms of columns.
Okay. All right. And what about the tops? Are those fixed or free?
No, they're free.
I see. All right. Okay. Anything else?
No.
Okay. How about you?
Yes. So for the what I'm doing is like two-story building, same as Steven, and
12 and 13.
Yeah, 12 and 13, and so. For the 12 and 13, we have the 2D layout, so we got the floor layout, and so for the column, it is a 3D layout. So I found the way to transfer from the AutoCAD to UpQues. So here I can transfer column and transfer the floor plan, and for the and then so we use the same method to get connection. We share the. If there has coincident point, we combine together so they stick together. What I'm doing today is I began to define the cross section because I think for the two floor systems, for my simple sample, there has no problem. I can run it and get a good result. And I began to build conditions, so define the cross section for each member for this two floor. So start to work on this two floor and. So this today and tomorrow I will got the cross section, and Monday I think should be there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you getting decent deflections?
Yes, it's good.
Okay.
And I think for Steven is I think he is trying to find the coincident point and combine together. Yes, I think should be working in SAP 2000. Yeah. But it takes some time to figure out how could we define those points.
So what are you doing different than what he's doing?
What we're doing is same for the joint and.
So can you give him some help in being able to get those connected? So that
yes.
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
All right. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I'm going to let you guys go and maybe turn this camera around, and so you can get pictures of your models and so forth, so everybody knows what we're doing, and then we're planning on Monday seeing if we can get some preliminary results out of this.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yeah, no
All right.
problem.
Yep.
All right, folks, there you go. Dr. Halsey and his students are putting a lot of thought into this work. And this project, of course, is being crowdfunded because it isn't cheap. So please chip in if you can. You can be a part of this important undertaking by becoming a sustaining supporter. It's as little as $7.50 a month, and that only lasts until April of 2017. Or you can make a one-time donation if that's the way you want to go. But go to WTC7evaluation.org. Just click the orange support button. Learn more about it and make that donation. Toss whatever you can into the hat. Every cent is needed and appreciated in this important fight. All right, before I play my interview with John O'Malley, we're going to do what we do every week. We're going to take 10 seconds of silence to remember the victims of 9/11, their families, and all the people who died in the wars that followed 9/11. We'll do that starting now. And that is 10 seconds.
The views expressed on this show by guests and the host on issues outside of the 9/11 controlled demolition evidence are the opinions of those individuals alone and do not necessarily reflect those of architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth.
John O'Malley is a retired federal employee. He's worked with the Food and Drug Administration, the Department of Defense, including the Office of the Secretary of Defense. He's got a background in statistical analysis, aerospace, special operations, aircraft, aerodynamics, system administration, database applications, project management, cost accounting. He currently helps steer the congressional outreach for AE 9/11 Truth, and he's one of the favorite guests on this show. I'm happy to have him back here today. John, welcome back to 9/11 Freefall.
Oh, thank you.
So, catch us up. You're like an old friend stopping by here. What have you been up to? What kind of stuff have you been doing in your absence since the last time you've been on this show?
Well, I work with architects and engineers, and because I live in the D.C. metropolitan area, I work with people in the D.C. 9/11 Truth Group. If any of your listeners live in the D.C. area, if they Google dc911truth.org, it's a website, and we do things like we have a float in the 4th of July parade, where we have it's basically a decorated pickup truck, and we have a big elephant that's supposed to be kind of symbolizing the elephant in the room that people cannot talk about. And we pass out leaflets. Like last time, we ordered, I don't know how many of the leaflets from architects and engineers, and pass them out. And it's about, I've been told that there's about 15,000 people who see that parade. And we, some of us are active politically. Even though I personally do not like politics or politicians, I think we do not have a choice, because if there ever is a real investigation of 9/11, it will require a vote in the Congress and the Senate, and that vote is going to be done by politicians. So one of the things about having a democracy that you live in is that there is a penalty for non-involvement. So it's important to be involved politically, because you can have an effect on these people who write the laws that now, we have to obey these laws that they pass, even though they may be based on complete lies. And I do things like, one of the advantages of living in the D.C. area is I can be down at the Capitol building in 45 minutes. and I am able to talk to people that I would otherwise not be able to talk to about the issues that we talk about in architects and engineers. And there's a lot of things that the average guy can do. You can become involved politically by volunteering in political campaigns. You can run for office. If you decide to run for office, you can get a free website at democracy.com where if somebody wants to donate to your campaign and they use a credit card and then it's funneled into your campaign bank account, you can do things like talk to your friends, neighbors, relatives. If you have an email and you have like a personal address book or contacts, say around September of every year, you can send an email to all the people in your contacts or email personal address book with things like the YouTube links for Experts Speak Out or Anatomy of the Great Deception. Because one advantage of sending an email with these YouTube links is email is very inexpensive. It's free. And these YouTube links include a video of the collapse of Building 7. And you do not have to be a structural engineer to see that there is some there. There's something there that does not look right. And the people that I've talked to, the thing that really convinced them has been Building 7. So that's why I think, it's good for us to concentrate on Building 7 because that's the one thing that they cannot explain away. The only thing that they can do is they can censor any mention of Building 7 out of the news. And when they do that, that censorship illuminates for people the fact that we do not have a free press.
And I want to jump in on that, too, because just because you mentioned about them censoring, I have actually had statements that I put out for AE take out references to the 3 buildings that fell in New York on 9/11, where they will do the ... in the middle of the sentence and take out reference to there being 3 buildings. So it's like they don't even want you to know that there were 3 buildings that fell on that day. So what you're saying is absolutely true. But part of the problem is that we have so much time passing right now that it's hard to keep it relevant in people's minds, especially for people who were only little toddlers when it happened. They're kind of starting to come of age and become students. That's the really activist age historically. So how do you feel as we approach this magic number of the 15-year anniversary, and how do we keep this issue alive in people's minds?
Well, I think that we have to make the connection that the NSA spying on Americans, you spy on your enemies. That's who you spy on. All of this stuff is based on a lie. The Patriot Act is based on a lie. The NSA spying is based on a lie. It's amazing. As a guy who used to work in the government, it's amazing that we could have these huge federal bureaucracies that are based on a complete lie. And there's millions of Americans who know that it's a lie, but you have members of the House and the Senate and people at high levels in the media that still pretend that this war on terror is real and that it's going to go on forever, so we have to give up our Bill of Rights forever. And they're attacking our Bill of Rights systematically. They're attacking the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment. And when they get rid of those, we could see our Bill of Rights collapse like Building 7. this is very serious. We are actually facing the possibility of losing our country. So we have to, as this generation of Americans, we have to step up to the plate and save our country. And we have to do things like basically bypass the controlled press. And one way we can do this is using email to candidates. If you go on your local state or county government or political party website, you can get the emails of candidates who are running from everything from dog catcher to senator. And sometimes these emails are in a web page or something. And now what I've done, and I'm no technical expert, so this is really pretty easy, is just select everything on that web page, copy it into Word, use the Word change command to replace every space with a line return. So now you have a list of words, and then copy that, put it into Excel. So now you have all the words in Excel. Then put that into Access database, and now you can select out all those words that have an @ in them. Now you've got all of the email addresses for all of those candidates on that website, and then I can put those into Outlook, and it'll automatically insert the colon in between the candidates' email addresses. And now you can send them an email with, the videos of Building 7 and Experts Speak Out and Anatomy of a Great Deception, et cetera, et cetera. And that's really easy. What I just said is not difficult. Now, there may be more elegant ways to do it. I don't know. But this is what we can do to communicate to these candidates. Because, the one thing that I found surprising is now that I've become involved in politics, I'm running into all these people who are intelligent, educated people who have never heard of Building 7. And they'll look me in the face and said, Building 7? I've never heard of that. In other words, the censorship of the controlled media is so effective. So when we send them these emails with, the YouTube links that actually show Building 7 coming down, hopefully it will make them to start thinking, and maybe they will start to investigate. And one thing we can do is, it's really good if you can form groups, because a group of people can do things that one person cannot. For example, one person could not have a float in the 4th of July parade about 9/11 truth, but a group of people together can have a float in a parade, and we've done it, and we're not professional float makers. We're just average guys, And one thing we found is using Meetup, Meetup.com is a very good way of recruiting people, because you can have a bunch of 9/11 truth people who live in the same zip code and just have no idea of one another. But by using Meetup, you can create a group, and now when you've got a group now, you have a critical mass that you can use. And I'll give you an example. Say you have a group, and they want to insert the issue into the local election. Well, one thing you can do is you can pick the majority party in your area if there's a seat that the incumbent is not running in, because that means that you're going to have a fairly large primary with a lot of people running in the primary, maybe 6, 7, 8, whatever. And when you have that, they have what are called candidate forums in the primary, which is usually they have a room in a high school cafeteria or something like that, and they have all the candidates, and it's basically a big debate. It's just like the presidential debate, only on a much more local level. Well, if you have one of your guys, a 9/11 Truth guy who's running, who signed up, and it's only like about $25 to sign up. It's not a big deal. And then if you can have your friends in the audience shout out like questions about 9/11 when your guy is at the podium speaking, now you can insert the issue of 9/11 into this election for, Congress or Senate or whatever it is. And now, if you are just one guy in the audience and you shout out a question about Building 7, you'll probably be ignored, and you'll probably be treated like a fool. However, if there is, say, 5 of you in the audience, and then one of you is one of the candidates who is up on the stage, on one of the, podiums, then you've got your guy who's a candidate who's now, he'll start answering the question about Building 7, and he'll start talking about Building 7 and 9/11 and, all this stuff. And all of a sudden now, you have changed the complete tone of this candidate forum. And one of the reasons that's important is the type of people who show up at these candidate forums are those people in the county or the town or whatever it is who are politically active. They're usually members of the Central Committee. In every county, you have 2 central committees. One is the Democrats, the other is the Republican, and sometimes there's a Green Party. And there's about 20 people in each. And these are the people who, who run the political organizations. And these are where the candidates come out of. So the members of the central committees are very important, even if they never run for office. If we could convince every single person in every central committee in every county in the U.S. about Building 7, that would be like an earthquake, because these people, many of them are office holders. They may be a mayor or a member of the, a county commissioner or, an alderman or whatever. And they are all connected to the important people in the local area. Even though we may all be equal in the eyes of God, while we are on this earth, we are extremely not equal. For example, convincing a governor is worth more than convincing a high school kid. But the people who run for office and who are candidates, they are on a first-name basis with the movers and shakers of the local community. Like, for example, a priest or a minister of a large church, or the owner of, say, the large restaurant in the area, or owners of large businesses, or like a car dealership or whatever. Or so these are people who we have to go after, whatever is the most effective way that we can. And one way is getting their email addresses. I mean, that's very simple, and it's you can, if you go to your state government website, it's usually under the SOS. SOS is Secretary of State. Under the each state government is divided into divisions. You have like highway, you have police, you have the universities, whatever. Well, there's one department that's called Secretary of State, and under that Secretary of State is where you find the information about voting, about the voting sites, how to register to vote, how to be a candidate, and usually there's a list of candidates. Now, some states, like Maryland, they actually have a Maryland Board of Elections, and in there is an active list. It changes every day, that you can actually download as an Excel spreadsheet, and one of those columns is the email addresses for all the candidates. So that is very powerful. It enables one guy with a computer to present the evidence to a large number of people, and these people are, influential people. The other thing that you can do is, and one thing that I do on my computer, I have a little Word document. It's like a little blurb about Building 7 and 9/11, stuff like that. And whenever I see an article that's written either for and against 9/11 or NSA or whatever, on those articles, very often they have the name of the journalist and his or her email address. Well, I can just copy my standard Building 7 9/11 blurb and send that person an email. That's something we can do, because these journalists, even though they have to be careful about minding their P's and Q's, because if they say the wrong thing, their career is toast, but they sometimes can speak kind of, if you read between the lines, they try to get away with what they can get away with. It kind of reminds me back in the old days of the Soviet Union, the 80s, Pravda, the people who would write for Pravda would say things indirectly. Give an example. The D.C. group in Washington, D.C., they were doing this paper. It was like a local paper where they did 9/11 truth stuff. And there was a local D.C. radio show that did a show about them. And what the guy did, the guy who was on the show, who, was the radio show guy, first he says, well, these people are crazy. And then he read word for word everything that the D.C. 9/11 group said. And then he said, you see, aren't these people crazy? And then again, he read word for word. It must have taken him 5 minutes. So here was a journalist who actually wanted to report the truth. And he probably believed the truth, but he had to report it in a way that he would not lose his job. So we kind of have to work with these people, because it's like, it's like in the federal government, I am sure there are people who work in NIST who would love to see NIST sued so that they could actually do their job. They'd love that. Because, if you sue NIST about, their, really it's a criminally fraudulent report that they did on Building 7, there are people in there who would like to, I'm sure, they would love to publish an amended report on the collapse of Building 7, but this time, say the truth. They'd love to do that, but they can't do it because they have to be obedient to their supervisors. But I tell you, if they could get some kind of court judgment to let them do that, oh, they would love it. And, I don't know how many people throughout the federal government have figured out what's going on, but there's a lot. But if you put yourself in their position, what can they do? Well, not a whole lot, because as an employee, your latitude of the ability to act is really very limited. And then, another thing people can do is they could just give money to architects and engineers, because the stuff that architects and engineers does cost money. For example, I think it was last September, they put that video billboard at Times Square showing the collapse of Building 7. Now, that's a big deal because, Times Square, there's a lot of people that see that every day. And New York, because of the kind of city it is, it's really an international city. It's a national city that people who go to New York very often are from faraway places and they go back to faraway places. Now, I don't know how much it costs architects and engineers to set up that billboard, but I wouldn't be surprised that those billboards probably run for or rent for, I don't know, $100,000 a day or something. I mean, they must be fantastically expensive. So, anything anybody can do to give, money to architects and engineers or any organization that you think would put forth your, positions you agree with, I mean, that's something you can do to save your country.
And I want to get your thought on this because you brought up things that we've had to raise money for. Currently, the big project is this new World Trade Center 7 computer model. And as I've stated so many times on this show before, how are they going to respond to this? NIST keeps its input data secret, and ours is completely out there in the open, transparent. People can give their input. So model versus model, what would a rational thinking person listen to in this case? So first of all, what are your thoughts about this project? And I guess we'll move on from there.
Well, I guess, my attitude is kind of like, general patent. You attack on all fronts at the same time. You overwhelm your enemy. You want to be continually on the offensive, and to the extent that this thing forces the NIST to respond, fine, great. Or if it could be combined with a lawsuit against NIST. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but these days, I mean, people will sue you for just about anything. I mean, people will sue you for looking at them the wrong way. So there must be some type of grounds for some kind of lawsuit to against NIST. And one of the benefits of these lawsuits is it forces people inside the organization to look at the evidence. And when they look at the evidence, then they say, "Oh my God, this is true," because a lot of people just don't want to believe it. I did not want to believe it. Now, see, I think the thing that we really need to concentrate on is to present our evidence in a way that can be understood by people who are not technical. We have to explain this stuff down, in very basic terms so that people who are not structural engineers are more comfortable with understanding just how they have been lied to. Because, this stuff is not, difficult. It's high school physics, but you have this disinformation campaign that keeps trying to make people believe the official lie. And I think also we have to point out, hey, that is a disinformation campaign. And once we point out to people that you're seeing a disinformation campaign and it has all the characteristics of a disinformation campaign, and go on the internet and research about disinformation campaigns, and you'll see it, because there are people in this world who have spent their careers on disinformation campaigns. I mean, the KGB, the CIA, British intelligence, French intelligence. I mean, running a disinformation campaign is a career field that people spend 30 years doing it. But one of the problems in running a disinformation campaign or becoming a part of a disinformation campaign, and I think we could see this with New York Mayor de Blasio when he fought the high-rise safety initiative. A disinformation campaign, by its nature, is something that has to be done in public. And when someone like, say, Mayor de Blasio or Bernie Sanders or whoever chooses to take part in a disinformation campaign, they now are showing at least a percentage of the population who they are and what they are. Because when people have been alerted to be able to see through a disinformation campaign, now the people who are running the disinformation campaign, they are actually getting a negative rate of return because, they're not convincing people the way they want. They're actually making people dig in their heels because, people realize that they're being lied to. It's connected to the dumbing down of our educational system, and they took out the active literacies of the education system. They took out the trivium. The trivium is grammar, logic, and rhetoric. And grammar, logic, and rhetoric teaches you how to see through the nonsense that people are trying when people are trying to pull the wool over your eyes. It's a good knowledge of rhetoric will prevent you from being bamboozled by these con men.
And you mentioned high school physics earlier, and you're talking about education now. I think that's a very poignant thing because education is very important, and I think people have been not taught to think logically. They've been taught to think with emotion when it comes to these things. We saw that certainly at the business conference at AIA last year, where somebody could simply just go up and say, I was there on 9/11 and can't we put this behind us? And people clap, but that's not really a rebuttal of any information. It's just a guy making an emotional plea for people to close their ears to to what is being spoken about. What do you think about the young people, though? I heard somebody talking about this regarding another issue earlier in the week about how this issue was able to be put forth even though it was an issue for several decades because the new generation wasn't as emotionally attached to it as the previous one. Do you feel that we're going to be able to make an impact on younger people because they may have been toddlers when 9/11 happened, and they don't remember it the same way that we do? They didn't see society changed and didn't live that day the same way that we did.
Well, I think we have to let them know that they are being put on a road to serfdom based on a lie. That the TSA, the NSA, DHA, these are all based on lies. And one thing I think is interesting. This year was like the 800th anniversary of the Magna Carta. And if you look into the history of the Magna Carta, which is very similar, there's some similarities about what's going on today. The Magna Carta is really a reflection of human nature, that people don't like being treated like dirt, that's the direction where we are headed. And a lot of the ideas in the Magna Carta are in our Bill of Rights. So our Bill of Rights is a reflection of human nature, that we do not like to have strangers coming into our houses, putting their grubby, dirty hands on our personal possessions without a warrant. So the young people still have the same innate human nature today that, the barons had when they wrote the Magna Carta to basically defend themselves from the tyranny of King John. Now, one advantage the young people have is that they are more conversant with the alternative media, whereas the older people, that I see the problem with the older people, they are still watching CNN and Fox and thinking that they're getting the news. Now, the other thing, not all of our children are in public schools. A lot of kids are being homeschooled, and one thing that I'm seeing in the homeschooling community is they are bringing back the trivium. They are teaching grammar, logic, and rhetoric, because the study of logic and rhetoric will prevent people from becoming victims of a snow job or becoming victims of being bamboozled. Like you saw at that thing at AIA, that these people, you know, they let themselves be snowed by some guy who had a statement that had apparently no basis in any substance. So that's why, you know, the trivium, which used to be the center of education in America and Europe, but this is where it really gets deep. In the 1800s, when they after the Battle of this was after the Battle of Jena, and it's the basically it came from the Prussian infantry attack at the Battle of Waterloo, and that led to our educational system imposing the Prussian model of education in America. The Prussian school system that has been imposed on us over the past, it's more than 100 years now, teaches people to, or you might say it conditions people, more than it teaches, it conditions people to do what they are told and to believe what they are told. When you combine this with keeping the passive literacy, which is, you know, being able to listen and read, but removing the active literacy, which is the ability to speak and to write, this is the way you turn a population into serfs. And it's been done over a very long time. I mean, we're talking now 150 years. But the one thing that is really giving them a fit is the Internet, because they cannot control the Internet. So I think we just have to, you know, use the tools that we have. And I think the best, you know, the Internet and email, those are very good tools, and they're very inexpensive. And anyone can do it. I mean, anyone. Like every person listening to this radio show can go to their local government, you know, website and get a bunch of emails, and then start sending emails to these people who are either current office holders or, you know, candidates that are going to be running now. There's, according to democracy.com, in the primaries, which is going to be like April, May, June for most states, there's going to be about 1 million Americans running in elections. Now, in the November election, that number is going to go down to about 300,000, about 1/3 people. And these people are all available. I mean, you can get their email addresses, their phone numbers. If you go to their websites and you put on your, usually all of these people who are running for office have some kind of website, and you can go there and you can like sign up and give them your email, and then they will email you whenever they're going to be at an event. Like, for example, they'll have a meet and greet at a hotel, or, you know, they'll be outside some factory someplace, or they'll be at a church dinner or picnic or something, and you could just walk up to them and talk to them about Building 7 or 9/11. And the thing is, we do not always have to be in the position of asking them questions. We can be in the position of, we just tell them. For example, if you're at a candidate forum, you know, there's two ways to do it. One is to ask a question, you know, what do you think about Building 7? But the other way is to just make a statement. Tell them that we figured out what happened to Building 7, and we want you guys to do something about it. There's a very different dynamic between asking a question and making a statement. Sometimes if you ask a question, it's easier for them to just ignore you as a, you know, pretend you're a nut. But when you make a statement, that kind of puts them in a more uncomfortable position. And then if you can be there with a few of your friends, for example, me and this other guy, we went to this, it was a political event Saturday, and this was about the voting machines in Maryland. And basically, he went up and he got cut off because the people didn't want to listen to him. But then I go up right after him and I say basically the same thing, only more so. So if it is much easier for them to dismiss one person, but if a few of us join together, and that's why meetup is a really good thing. If we can get together, 5 or 10 people can do things that one person cannot do. And if you're a candidate and you're up at the podium, and some of these things, people can walk up to the mic. Well, we'll say for example, Andy, you walk up to the mic and you ask about 9/11, and they dismiss you as a nut. But then I'm standing right in back of you, and I walk and I do the same thing. Okay, now they dismiss me as a second nut. But say 5 of us are in line. I mean, we have just changed what's happened at that event. And now these people have to kind of wake up. And, I think we just have to keep on the offensive, and we just have to present the evidence and bypass the controlled press. So, that's kind of my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I like what you said, too, about simply demanding, not putting it into a question, because the candidate or the senator or whoever you're talking to can simply say, well, I don't believe that there was a conspiracy on 9/11. When you're simply asking them about Building 7 and the science evidence, they just kind of associate it with all of the other questions people ask about 9/11. But to say, no, we know this was a controlled demolition, what are you doing about it? What are you planning to do about it? Why wouldn't you just rerun the analysis with the proper structural features included? Because that is what you should have done in the first case. This is the reason people don't believe you. This is the reason that people want a new investigation and are asking all these other questions and exploring who else could have been involved, because you haven't addressed the simple basic needs of a real scientific investigation by including the proper parts. You just had a simple solution, a simple explanation that you wanted to push, and you left those parts out so that you could present that explanation. That's not science. So let's attack the conspiracy theories. Let's get rid of the conspiracy theories by actually doing our jobs and having a real investigation, and that will deal with all of that.
And the way you just said it was, I think, excellent. And if he dismissed you, and then I was standing in line behind you at the microphone, when I got to the microphone, I could say, you didn't answer that guy's question. I want you to address what that guy just said.
Do you remember Congressman Cuellar? When he was, the first time he was asked about Building 7, the host diverted, this was on C-SPAN's Washington Journal when we had the campaign going on, but the host diverted the caller with another question about illegal immigration. The guy said 4 or 5 words on it and then said, back to my original question, and then they completely dismissed it and just talked about immigration. And then the next caller was an older woman who called him out on it. But the next time Cuellar was on the show, the woman a different caller, who said, the last time you were on the show, you eluded the question, so can you please give me a straight answer? This guy couldn't escape. So that's the way to do it, and that's exactly what you're describing there. I cut you off. Please continue.
No, that's okay. Because, these people, they practice this. They practice these answers. For example, I saw Jeb Bush was on C-SPAN, and some guy does something like this. And you could see, well, I can see, that Jeb Bush had a prepared response. Now, his prepared response was, a lot of it was, I think, very practiced nonverbal. He kind of rolls his eyes and smiles and kind of turns his head. So he hasn't said a word yet, but through his practiced body language, he's communicating to the crowd, oh, another nut. So these people, I mean, they practice this stuff. It is, their answers are rehearsed, not only just the words, but they rehearse their body language because you can see it. I mean, at least I can see it. I can see it in the way that Jeb Bush, he kind of rolls his head and kind of rolls his eyes, so everybody in the audience now can see he's rolling his eyes, and he has sort of a smile. Oh yeah, so he's saying non-verbally, oh, this is another nut. And I think we just have to meet these guys.
Well, and actually, John, I'm going to have to jump in because we're running out of time, but in our last minute, I just want to hear from you. You've already talked about some of the positive things that we have seen. How do you think, in our last minute here, how do you think the future will look back at the 9/11 controlled demolition issue? And what do you have to say to those people that are looking back from the future right now?
I would say we'll try, and we need all the help we could get because our country is at stake.
That is the best way to put it. John O'Malley, thanks so much for coming back on 9/11 Free Fall.
Well, thank you for having me.
This program's on every Thursday night on No Lies Radio at 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific. You can also download MP3s of this show from the Internet Archive by going to 911freefall.com. This is Andy Steele saying have a great week and good luck.